Bishop Aubrey Shines, it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
To have you here. We're in Tampa, Florida. Breitbart News thanks you very much for this interview, this opportunity. You are an outspoken supporter of Donald Trump's presidential candidacy. You spoke for him here in Tampa in front of 20,000+ supporters of his. We want to get right into it. We're going to talk a little bit about culture, about politics, and obviously the presidential election. Polls are tightening.
Sure.
They're coming out faster and faster. It's kind of hard to keep up. But one thing that I've noticed, poll out of Pennsylvania, 29% black support for Donald Trump. That's a state where Romney received 27% support. Nationally, NBC had a poll a few days ago, 9% nationally among blacks. When we spoke on the phone last week, you said that Donald Trump is going to garner more votes from black and Latino Americans than any Republican presidential candidate has in decades. What do you think black and Latino voters are seeing out of Donald Trump in this election that they are not seeing out of Hillary Clinton, that they are not seeing out of the Democratic Party?
I think it's a history of things. I mean, let's look at several factors. When you have a president or a potential president, and this candidate goes into the black community or to any poor community, and that candidate then begins to discuss the very issues that these individuals that are finding themselves in. For instance, let's look at education. When we begin to talk about the polling, blacks are finally realizing, not because of the DNC party, but because of groups like yours, like mine, like others that will just simply expose the truth with no necessary, by the way, no bias, just a real educational adrenaline rush that we're trying to inject within to the mainstream of their thinking. What we're finding is that blacks realize they've not been given the same opportunity as their white counterpart. Case in point, a black kid that is stuck in a poor school district, that mom, that hardworking mom, she doesn't have the right under the DNC platform to remove her son or her daughter out of that failed school system and put that child in a school system where they could be productive. One of the reasons, according to Hillary Clinton, and again, blacks are hearing this, well, like if that parent decides that they want to send their kids to a private school that has a Christian influence. Well, again, what blacks are finding appalling is that they are now being sacrificed and put on this altar to be sacrificed for the expediency of a vote because some union boss somewhere wants to keep his or her job. So that blacks are continuing to suffer at just an alarming rate as poor white and poor Hispanic. And so you see these polls that are tightening because blacks just in that category alone, they realize, why can't I take my tax dollar and go somewhere where it would just simply benefit my child?
It's no secret that black children, Latino families in particular, after Katrina in Louisiana, that is one of the major achievements, if you will, that came out of a horrible tragedy was the rejuvenation of the education system that former Governor Bobby Jindal was able to do with charter schools in that city. The teachers union here in Florida sued because they don't like charter schools. They feel like it takes money away from that bucket that goes into public funding. But what charter schools does, and I think what you're saying that Donald Trump is implying here, why he supports it, what it does is it gives those families, those parents, the choice to send their children to the schools.
Well, that's the whole point. The issue is a choice. It's amazing to me as a pastor that there's a party that doesn't want to give poor people a choice as it relates to their education. Now, they'll give them choices on any other subject matter, but on education, no. This elitist thinking is telling poor people, and especially blacks that have really been the real victim here of all of this, of these 7 decades of failed policy. They're telling poor blacks they don't have the choice. to take their child from a failing school district and put that child in an environment where they can learn. Remember this, a lot of blacks are marginalized if they speak a certain way, if they have a grasp of the King James English a certain kind of way. They're called, you're being white. But it's not that. They've been brainwashed to believe this, not just within their own communities, but then you have these elitists that are telling the poor black mom, you don't have the same right as Chelsea does. You don't have the same right as Barack Obama's children, he and Michelle's kids. We know what's better for you, and that is stay in that failed system, and we will help you. Well, I think America is finally waking up. That experiment has really gone south. It really doesn't work.
When Donald Trump announced his candidacy last year, he really staked his candidacy on immigration. I think a word that I'm pulling from you is this paternalism that the Democratic Party has for poor blacks and poor Latinos. The Civil Rights Commission has run the numbers, and they've written letters to President Obama. They've written letters to the Congressional Black Caucus for years, trying to inculcate to them what illegal immigration has done to price out poor black, white, and Latino workers from the workforce. These elites that you speak of, they don't actually care. The labor is cheap, and it's a win-win for them, regardless of the fact that it is actually depressing employment among blacks, among non-college educated whites, and those legal immigrants who did everything right and came to America and are now forced to compete with people whose first action entering the country was to break the law. Donald Trump is speaking directly to the American voter and saying, I'm going to fix this.
Sure. Let's look at it even from a different angle. And again, don't take my word for it. Go out and read an excerpt from Barack Hussein Obama's book, The Audacity of Hope. He said, I can almost quote this. He said, when illegal immigration is not resolved, it puts a strain on the already safety net that impacts America, and especially Black America. He went on to speak in this book how when the safety net is broken, it impacts because those jobs that illegals get in America have usually been the jobs that blacks in America have actually had. I'm talking construction jobs, jobs of that magnitude, and those type of jobs, by the way, has been a tremendous sustaining force in Black America. Now, go and study the rest of Barack Obama. Even his commissioner said, and I can quote Kevin when he said it, he said, because of illegal immigration, there is now a 18 to 24% higher unemployment in the Black community because illegal immigration has impacted it. These numbers are staggering, especially when you think about in this president's 8-year tenure here are the numbers. Numbers don't lie. We all have a right, by the way, to our opinions, but none of us have a right to facts. Here are the facts. 8% higher unemployment in the Black community. 58% more blacks on welfare since this failed president has taken office. There's now a $20,000 wage gap between blacks and between whites. Blacks earn almost $4,000 less since Barack Hussein Obama has become the president. Add to that equation illegal immigration, and now you have 18 to 24% higher unemployment in the Black community just on illegal immigration alone. Donald Trump has made a vow, and that vow no other president has made and fulfilled, and that is, we're going to stop it. We're not going to stop it because we hate someone. We're going to stop it because it's illegal. We're going to stop it because it's putting a burden on employment in America. And those that are impacted the most are poor people. Whether they're poor Black, white, or Latino, they are being impacted. This is why blacks in America are beginning to look at a different candidate other than this party, this failed party that has given us 7 decades Trillions of dollars that they have inputted into poor communities. What has it gotten them? Absolutely nothing. And this is why you're seeing this pendulum begin to swing in another direction.
At the same time, Breitbart News has covered the WikiLeaks purported emails hacked from John Podesta. Within one of those WikiLeaks emails, there were transcripts from a speech that Hillary Clinton, who is looking to be a continuation of, as you said, these failed Obama policies. In this May 2013 speech Hillary Clinton gave to a Brazilian bank, she in so many words said that she, at some point in the near future, wants an open border. And so you've just described how much illegal immigration and the Obama administration turning a blind eye to the problem, and in fact making it worse for blacks and Latinos and poor working families. Hillary Clinton is here saying that she actually wants to compound the problem, promising an open border to enact her agenda. Donald Trump is seemingly the only alternative to stop this bleeding that Hillary Clinton presidency would usher in.
Well, he will stop it. And again, I had the real privilege of sitting at the presidential debate, the last debate in Las Vegas. And it was amazing to me to watch the senator and the ex-Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, when Chris Wallace asked her that very question, she pivoted. She talked about, and she said in essence, oh, well, if you read the rest of the speech, now if you pause right there, you'll understand something. She's admitting that what was released was accurate.
Right.
So it was no longer, well, we don't know if the Russians are, no longer was it a Russian issue, because she actually affirmed that what we were reading was accurate. She said, well, this really had to do more with gas and with oil. Well, wait a minute. Of course we know better. That's almost like her comparing herself to Abraham Lincoln, as she did in the prior debate.
Right.
Here's the problem. When you have open borders, you can't then control the flow of individuals, regardless of who they are and what country they come from. Because if I am someone who wants to create harm in America, and I know that there's an open border in a certain part of America, the only thing I need to do is get on a plane and get to that region. I can then get through this open border. This is not just about jobs now. We're talking about security.
Right.
We're talking about defending our rights. People don't realize this, that even with illegal immigration, again, you have had several 100,000 crimes committed by illegals.
Right.
Our prisons are filled with illegal immigrants that the United States taxpayer is paying to house them, somewhere between $60,000 and $90,000 a year. You tell me we can't do better? We can, and with Donald Trump, we will.
There is also another aspect of this that I believe Donald Trump, again, when he announced his candidacy, he brought the parents who've lost their children. Jamil Shaw Sr., his son, gunned down by an illegal immigrant who he thought Jamil Shaw Jr. was affiliated with a gang. Shot him cold blood. There is a cost. There are thousands, many thousands of families who've had to bury their loved ones because of this problem. It's the lawlessness. And interestingly enough, when Hillary Clinton was a senator, she actually voted for a bill that George Bush was going to sign, and the law had failed, but she voted for a bill that essentially would fund a portion of the wall to be built on the Mexico border to tighten security. But now it seems she's had a conversion.
Well, she's capitulating, unfortunately, to the crowd that she is trying to champion.
The facts are the same.
Well, of course the facts are the same. As a matter of fact, the facts have become a little more intense since her tenure as senator. Here's the bottom line. We're in trouble in this nation. We have high unemployment. When I hear the false numbers of this alleged 4%, those of us who have, I don't know, just studied basic economics in 8th grade or 9th grade, you can't have that number, but yet have the highest number of men and women in this nation that are actually the recipient of some sort of entitlement. We're almost near 100 million people that are getting some form of assistance, and yet we have these false numbers of well, the unemployment is the lowest it's been in X amount of years. It's ridiculous. Those of us who study, we know that men and women are having now to work 2 jobs. People like myself that are being impacted by this failed policy of Obamacare, where most Americans were told, hey, listen, $2,500 deduction, you're going to keep your doctor. I can tell you personally, it's a lie. My personal premiums have gone up 40% since this false notion, and yet we have Hillary Clinton that says, we're not going to get rid of it. We're going to build on it. Build on what? Yeah. Build on a failure? We have entered in America into a place of what I call insanity. And again, for those that don't understand what's at stake, it's a lot. And if we continue the same course, we're going to find ourselves, unfortunately, on the wrong side of history in doing so.
Yeah, but Obamacare is a particularly interesting case, isn't it? It was Barack Obama's seminal achievement when it passed, and since then, everything that everyone said that was going to happen, that was against him, saying that you could keep your doctor, that you'd have flexibility in your plans, that families would save up to $2,500, is turning out to be absolutely false. And people are losing their plans if they can keep them, and the people who can keep them, they're seeing dramatic increases. And that is because, just as everyone predicted, the insurance companies, when you force them to give people coverage regardless of their illness and their history of illness, the insurance companies are basically forced to take these people, but these are sicker Americans.
And look at the impact again on Blackers.
It's driving up the cost.
It's not only just driving up the cost. There are reports out that most blacks are not even signing up for this.
They're taking the penalty.
They're taking the penalty for it. And that's not even impacting the small businesses that blacks are trying to operate and trying to open. These regulations, these policies that the Democrats continue to offer up, they are strangling small businesses. They're strangling poor people. These false energy things. Again, every report says if we go in the direction of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, it's going to increase gas and electric bills. Do you really think that poor black people can afford even $10 more a month on a bill to heat their homes? This is insanity. We need common sense. We need someone who understands a business market. We need someone who understands what it is to create jobs. And this is why blacks are resonating with Donald Trump. They're looking at his success. They don't see it as any other thing other than this guy has worked hard. He has made something happen. And he's not one that's just talking to receive $150 million worth of incentives as Hillary Clinton. This is a guy right here in the state in which I'm a part of that has thousands of Latinos that work for him. This is a man that has created jobs around this nation. Now, here's the reality. If we overlook that, and if we turn a blind eye to that, and if we put someone in office, again, based on her own language, she's going to continue the policies of Barack Obama, then, oh my God, where will we find ourselves as a nation? Unfortunately, on the wrong side of history.
You brought up the third presidential debate last week, which was in Las Vegas. Donald Trump had Hillary Clinton, I believe, on her heels. I don't think abortion is a very comfortable subject for her. And in fact, again, going back to the WikiLeaks emails, there was an exchange by her campaign chairman and her campaign staff about, whether or not they wanted Hillary Clinton to come out and support Planned Parenthood. Again, this was around the time that those videos were coming out of Planned Parenthood of affiliates talking about the dismemberment of aborted fetuses and aborted babies. Hillary Clinton has not shied away from her position that she basically believes in abortion up until the day that the child should be born. Abortion is enshrined in the Democratic Party's platform. It has been for decades. You say, you're talking about this paternalism, you're talking about this elitism.
Mm-hmm.
Abortion is the #1 killer of blacks in
Absolutely.
America.
Absolutely. And as you know, I produced a video on this, and I showed the history of this whole ideal of abortion, how it ties into the black community. Let's look at the facts, because again, anyone can have an opinion, but here are the facts. Since 1967, 49% of all blacks have been aborted in the womb. That's roughly somewhere between 22 and 24 million black children aborted in the womb. That's not talking about the families they could have had and the geniuses that could have come out of those lineages had that not been the scenario. But let's go a little further into this whole thing. Here's a eugenicist, Margaret Sanger, who is the founder of Planned Parenthood. And when I sat at the debate, and I heard Hillary Clinton lie on international TV about this issue, my heart was broken, not because she lied. I expect her to lie, I get that. But what really broke my heart was that none of the media followed this up intentionally. Here are the facts. Hillary Clinton has received the award of the Margaret Sanger Award in Texas. I have that on my video. Here's a woman that's receiving the award that Margaret Sanger, by the way, said, and I can quote, she saw black people as inferior, and she needed to help exterminate this inferior race. And the way that she would be able to do it is through public policy and the silence of ministers in America. She would camouflage it as, let's make sure that we are monitoring how many children that they have. But the real essence of Margaret Sanger was to destroy what she called the inferior race. Hillary Clinton has received an award from the Margaret Sanger group. So is it any question that when you study where the Planned Parenthoods, the majority of Planned Parenthoods are in black communities around the country. So Hillary Clinton sees blacks obviously as inferior, because if she didn't, wouldn't she then be championing the cause to make sure that blacks are not exterminated? Yet she receives an award for it.
Breitbart News, I wrote the story, I published the map, and on the map there are dots, and the dots represent Planned Parenthood facilities. They are within walking distance of black and Latino neighborhoods. There are some areas of New York where there are more abortions than there are live births. We're talking about a debate. Hillary Clinton, again, it was a position that she just, it was an issue she did not want to talk about. And Donald Trump basically said, look, should I be elected president, I am going to appoint Supreme Court justices who are going to be pro-life, just as Donald Trump says he is. He says, I am going to do everything within my power as president to take the issue of abortion back to the states. Most Americans do not agree with Hillary Clinton on partial birth abortion. That is a viable baby being partially birthed and their head cracked open and their stem cell ripped out.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton believes in this, and I'm watching the same debate you're watching, and she's defending this position.
Well, she has to defend it because, again, this is where her financial base is predicated. A lot of it comes out of. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this to every one of your viewers. Blacks in America should be appalled that there is a candidate and a system that has been designed to destroy them, a complete genocide of an entire race of people. That is who Margaret Sanger was. This is what Hillary Clinton believes in. And when Hillary Clinton lied at that debate, when Donald Trump made it very clear, and he was 100% right, Hillary Clinton believes in a policy that up until the day of delivery, that a person, by the way, can destroy, and she hides it and cloaks it behind, well, if the life of the woman is at jeopardy. We're not even talking now about the life of a person in jeopardy. We're talking about a child that can live outside the womb. She has no conscience, no problem that that child could have its head ripped open and that organs could be sucked out and that her friends can sell the body parts that they can buy Lamborghinis, that's their testimony. Every black in America should understand who this Democratic Party is, who Hillary Clinton is, and that they can do better. And I'm going to say this. It is time for blacks to get off of the plantation party of the Democratic Party and come back to a party of the Abraham Lincolns, the Frederick Douglass, the Martin Luther Kings, the Sojourner Truth. Get out of this party that is helping create a genocide in your own community.
There is a thriving black middle class in America. That's undeniable. But there is, and there has been for many decades, an underclass. There is a lot of talk about race and race relations in America. Hillary Clinton is a woman who described blacks as super predators. This was at a time when she was trying to promote her husband, then President Bill Clinton's prison and crime reform bill. Hillary Clinton has repeatedly said that we need to address the systemic racism in our country when we're talking about police and community relations. She campaigns with the mothers of the movement, which are the mothers of women like Trayvon Martin and other mothers whose sons have been killed in gunfire or by police. But rarely do you see Hillary Clinton talk about the real areas where there's rampant lawlessness.
Sure.
Where most Americans sit back and they look at these communities and they're mired in misery. There's just despair. The schools are failed. There is little to no economic opportunity. You see Donald Trump saying that we're going to work on our ghettos. I'm black and you're just as milk chocolate black as me. We refer to those blighted communities
Sure.
as ghettos. There are historic reasons, obviously, for that, but that is how we talk. He is then vilified for the words that he says, and the attention is not really actually paid to the problem that he's...
Well, it isn't. And here's the unfortunate part about that. When you bring up the facts, and I think they're excellent facts, you look at the deluge of failure in the black community. You can always trace it, by the way, for the most part. One stream of it goes directly into public policy, whether that public policy is trapped, failed schools that blacks are trapped in, no access to get out, because the policy says, we got to keep you there, we know what's better for you, as well as high taxes. Taxes that doesn't allow an individual to expand his or her business. And again, when you're talking 50, 60% of your income going in to just pay taxes and regulations, it's miserable. It just really, really is. When I hear Hillary Clinton call black kids super predators, but then some kind of way the media never picks that up, I wonder, have they forgotten, or do they have a temporal case of convenient amnesia that even her husband, Bill Clinton, when talking to Senator Ted Kennedy, when Barack was running, right to him running for presidency, these are Bill Clinton's words, not mine. He said to Kennedy, you know, it's just a couple years ago, that guy would have been bringing our coffee to us, end of quote. So what kind of mind is that? That's a mind that sees blacks as you're subservient to us. In other words, as a Democratic Party, I don't really have to do anything to get your vote. I know you're going to be there for me. I can do anything to you I want to. You're going to be faithful. It's really the definition of a slave in one real weird way of speaking. And this is how blacks have been treated in the Democratic Party. They think, well, wait a minute, we're the party for you. Well, you can't be. You can't be when all of your policies work totally against our own survival. Those are realities that we're facing. And when I look at a failed president, or a potential president candidate like Hillary Clinton, here's a reality. Had someone of color did a portion of what she's done, they would already be in a cell somewhere for the next 20, 30, 40 years of their life. Yet justice is not justice in the black community as it is with Hillary Clinton. And this is why I'm appealing to every black and Latino that's out there, and every conscious white that's out there. If you love America, if you love blacks in America, please don't support a party that has really been the very instrument and the conduit to destroy the very people that you say that you love. I just think that we can do better. And again, with Donald Trump, we will.
We're talking about the current pain that, again, particularly minorities feel through Democratic policies on immigration and education and healthcare with Obamacare. But you point out that the Democratic Party has always had a horrific record on civil rights. It's homework. If you go to the Democratic Party's national website, I think it's democrats.org, there's about 100-year history that is not there. They have a timeline on the website. There's several decades missing. And I'm sure you can expound on that.
Sure.
It's not a pretty history.
Well, it isn't. Again, I did a 4-minute video that went viral. Here's the reality. Here's the Democratic Party in just several sound bites here. They are the party that gave you slavery. They are the party that gave you lynching. They are the party that gave you the KKK. They are the party that gave you Roe v. Wade. They are the party that gave you Jim Crow laws. They are the party that took 7 out of 10 votes away from blacks, even in California, that said, we want marriage to be called traditional. They are the party that will not allow blacks to take their kids and put them in the school of their choice. Yet, they are the party that insists that we know better for you than you really know for ourselves. That part of the Democratic history, it's history, unless you become a revisionist and you want to change the history, but no one can deny the facts that I just espoused. This is where these false narratives in America have come from. Here's where the failure in America has come from. Study the party of the GOP. What you'll find emancipators. You'll find the church that was dominated by Quakers that said, wait a minute, these atrocities called slavery, it's wrong. And we're going to work to make sure that we get them right. Therefore, they helped create an environment for a guy by the name of Abraham Lincoln. By the way, the same Abraham Lincoln that all the Democrats opposed because they wanted to keep their blacks in chains and making sure that they were going to be there to take care of them. That is the party, my friend, of the DNC. And anyone that denies it, they themselves are in denial.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, the history is sound. Even Lyndon Baines Johnson, he was on the plane with 2 governors, and he said, I'm doing this great society. I'm expanding, if you will, this welfare system because I'm going to have these ends voting Democrat for 200 years. It's
time to stop it. He's had a quarter of that to be successful. I'm here to destroy his prophecy that the next 150 plus years will not have this deluge of blacks. Again, I put that in a video. By the way, I did not bleep out the word when he said in. Right. I put it in. I want people to know this is how the Democrats have viewed blacks. And I can tell you this. When that video went out, so many blacks had no idea. Yeah. So many blacks had no idea that Hillary Clinton said her mentor was Senator Byrd. By the way, who was a Klansman, for God's sake. No one really knows this because the national media won't discuss this issue.
Senator Robert Byrd, a senator from West Virginia, may he rest in peace. But at his eulogy, Bill Clinton spoke. He gave the eulogy. And Bill Clinton, probably the most favorite Democratic president in a half century, was speaking at Senator Robert Byrd's funeral. This is a man who was a leader in the Klan. He wasn't just a secretary. He wasn't just the guy who put up the cross before they burned it. He was a Kleagle, a leader in the Klan. And Bill Clinton, who has sorted, mentors of his own, racially speaking, said that, Senator Byrd was just a young boy in West Virginia trying to get elected, which was his way of justifying that party. And people say, the party switched, but this is Bill Clinton just a few years ago.
Well, can you imagine for just a moment had Donald Trump been tied to, the religion of David Duke? Right. We would never hear the end of it. And again, so when I hear that, is very, very offensive. And I just want to say this. I know we only have a few seconds left here, but I want to make sure that people understand by looking at that video that that wasn't 100 years ago. These are policies that are still impacting blacks today. And if blacks don't switch parties, they're going to continue to live in this dynamic of misery where you have a few elitists, whether they're black or white, and again, I've done the research here, that they're going to be stuck in this quagmire of failure in their school systems. And I said this a few years ago in D.C. I did a study of even the Black Caucus, again, the Black Democratic Party. While they fight young black kids from having an opportunity, an equal opportunity, a school of their choice, the majority of their kids, they go to private schools. Al Sharpton's niece, right here in my city, private school. So why isn't it good for other poor black and poor Hispanic kids to have a school of choice? Why is it that the policies are rigged, and it is rigged, when you have a failed media system that will highlight some horrible, deplorable thing that Mr. Trump may have said 12 or 15 years ago, but you have a president candidate in the person of Hillary Clinton who have not only said these things and done these things, but defended those who have. This is insanity, for God's sake. And if we don't get a grip and understand the importance of this election that's coming up, we could lose America permanently. So here's the reality. If we continue the failed direction that we've been going in, and this is why I'm making a strong, emphatic plea to blacks and Hispanics all across this nation, wake up. You only have a couple days to, you won't have to read an encyclopedia on the history of the Democratic Party. You can take a small little card and find out what this party has stood for. They're against your principles. They're against your moral compass. And they are against policies that really allow you to have a real free society. You'll vote for Donald Trump based on principle alone.
Bishop Shines, you are you're a bishop. You're a leader. You have a congregation. You have a family. Your daily avocation, your operating assumption when you wake up out of bed is to bring souls to Christ. That is not necessarily political, but you have chosen, if you will, to be a vocal supporter of Donald Trump, who has been vilified. He talks about the election and the system being rigged. He's talking about that media, that Beltway media conglomerate that is aligned with the political class that only wants to just keep power for themselves. You've made, and it must have been hard, I imagine anyway, a personal choice to stand up and say, this man is not perfect, but he is far and away better than the alternative. That must have been hard for you, again, as a man who was responsible for feeding families. I mean,
well, it is, but it isn't at the same time. I know it sounds like a conundrum, but let me bring some clarity.
I know you've been called names.
Oh my God! If you saw the list of names that I've called, even today, by the way, I could take it if I had a cold house and it needed heat. I could burn it, and the whole house would be heated for the next decade or so. Here's the reality: I'm not supporting Donald Trump because he's perfect. As a matter of fact, the last time I checked, this is not a theocracy. I'm not looking to elect a pope. I'm not looking to elect a bishop. I'm looking to elect a chief and commander, someone that will abide by our Constitution, that it won't make our Constitution relative, depending on what culture it is today. I'm looking for a candidate that understands that. Now, as it relates to the imperfections of anyone, well, my God, save the grace of God, there all of us go. This is much broader than this. I'm very fortunate. I shepherd 20 plus different ethnic groups on any given Sunday. I happen to be so fortunate that I have a mother that has a lighter hue than me. She's Jewish. I'm fortunate, and my fortunate is that I'm an American, that I don't just see myself as some ethnicity, but I see myself as an American that happens to have a dual ethnicity. We must see ourselves as American first. So when I look at the choices, there is no choice. Here's the reality. I was once a supporter of the Senator, Ted Cruz. I met with Cruz's team in Dallas. Well, that horse didn't finish the race. There was never a choice in my mind whether or not, oh boy, whether or not I would sway as it relates to the Democratic Party. I can never support a party that has been the instrument of the genocide of an entire race of people. Any person of conscience, I would think, if they knew the history, I would like to think that they could never support a party that was the instrument of destroying. And by the way, that party has never recanted. That party has never apologized for its history. That party has never said, you know what, we owe reparations to blacks because we were the party that destroyed you. That's a party that has never had any repentance. As a bishop, as a senior pastor, when a man or woman stands up and says, I'm sorry for the terrible things that I've done, well, my God, the same mercy that's extended to me, I know it's extended to them. But I'm not voting for a person based upon whether or not they're qualified to be a bishop or a pastor or a pope. That's ridiculous. Again, this is not a theocracy. I'm voting for someone that will remember our Constitution, someone that will not be as divisive, racially speaking, as this administration has been, and the same person, Hillary Clinton, she would be. She sees Americans divided. She wants to continue to divide us. We can't be divided. We are a united American. And when I hear the false narrative that America is so racially divided, may I remind your audience that 7 out of 10 whites voted for a black man to be in the Oval Office. When you have those kind of numbers, you can't then cry racial diversity. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't mean that there's not a pocket here or a pocket there of people that will be bigoted. There's always going to be bigots. We're never going to eradicate that. That's okay. But we can't have 7 out of 10 whites that voted for a black guy, and then the black guy in his party says, well, these people are being racist. And when I hear the false narrative of our police officers, according to Hillary Clinton, that is targeting blacks, may I remind her, may I remind those that follow that false lie, that there are more white officers that kill whites than white officers that kill blacks. May I remind that same audience that 95% of the murders in black community, by the way, I came out of the Chicago burbs. I went to a Chicago school, and I can tell you right now, 95% of all the murders that are there, not being created by white officers, that's black on black crime. Since this year began of 2016, almost 4,000 blacks have been shot. Almost 1,000 have been murdered, not by white officers, but by blacks killing blacks. That's a problem. And I usually never quote a guy like Minister Louis Farrakhan. I'm on the opposite side of every anti-Semitic thing this guy stands for. But even Farrakhan is saying, and I can quote him, that this president has done nothing for black America. He has advanced the LGBTQ community. That's all that he has done. Those are the words of Farrakhan. And he said about Hillary Clinton, she'll be worse than Barack Hussein Obama. Blacks need to know this kind of information.
The election is less than 2 weeks away. Again, the polls are tightening. No one knows which way it is going to go. But for those Americans who are still undecided, who do realize the importance of their vote, the vote and their voice, and the part that they play, and the sacrifices that were made for them to have that vote, what is your message to those Americans who, again, they understand the importance of the election, but they're still undecided? They have a choice to make. You say it wasn't a choice at all for you, but what's your advice to those Americans?
I would say to every American that is thinking, well, I only have a couple weeks left here. I don't know what to do. Let me help you. Please let me help those Americans. If you're white in America, let me say this to all of my white friends in America, and I have so many. I'd say if you love blacks and if you love this country, if you supported Hillary Clinton, you can't really love them the way you say that you do. Why? Because you're supporting policies that are actually helping cause genocide in the black community. You're actually supporting policies that says to the failed black kids, yeah, you shouldn't be able to go to school of your choice. We can, because maybe we have the economic prowess to do so. But if you don't, that's your problem. I say to all my white friends, how dare you despise a group of people so much that you would support a candidate like Hillary Clinton, or even thinking about supporting her, when her party has given you all the things that I've enumerated earlier. You can't do it. To the blacks, I say to those blacks that follow me, and we have a lot that do, you don't have a choice in this election. We don't have 20 other choices. It's down to 2 candidates here. And to say that you'll sit at home is a disgrace, because there have been blacks and whites that have given their lives for this idea that you would have a right to vote. People have lost their lives, their livelihood, to give you this opportunity. So when I see those that are sitting on the sideline and saying, well, I'm not sure what to do, it's a real simple choice. It's not even complicated. What they want you to do is focus on the personal problems of an individual. But let me remind those blacks, you're not voting for a bishop or a pope. You're voting for an individual that's flawed, but we're not voting for the individual. We're voting for a platform. And that platform will help you with your education. It would allow you to take your kids out of failing schools to say, you know what? There should be some education equality here. It will allow you to make sure that instead of paying more than almost half of your dollar, more than 50%, when you begin to add up all the taxes, why not have the same opportunity that Hillary has? And that is, lower your tax rate. This is what Donald Trump wants to do. I wish he would even go further. I'm going to encourage him to go further. I would love to be able to have the right to take my Social Security money and make sure that my grandkids have it instead of giving it back to a state and its failed policies. I want blacks to understand that when you vote, you must vote your conscience, and that conscience should be, I can never vote for a party that has been set to my demise. But it's time for me to go back to the very party that actually championed my freedom and liberty in this nation just a few hundred years ago. That's the party of the GOP. And allow me to say this to even every black pastor. Shame on you for not sharing with your congregations who this party has been, the DNC party. Shame on you for even considering voting for a platform that continues to harm your parish, wherever you may be. You must become courageous. Stop being cowards. I have had so many leaders to say to me, Bishop, I agree with you, but if I say it, I may lose my congregation. Well, for God's sake, man up. This is what you're called to do. You may lose a few, but if you're trusting God, God is able to make all things really work together for your good. Have I taken a lot of hits for this? Beyond your imagination. But I never amplify the giants or alleged giants that are before me, because I really believe that we can take this land back. I believe we can have a Supreme Court that will respect the rights of the states. I believe that with the right candidate, which I believe, by the way, is Donald Trump, I believe that once our taxes are lowered, more people can then begin to have jobs. I believe when we stop this illegal immigration issue, not because we don't love people, we're the most giving country that has ever existed, America. Anytime there's been a catastrophic event, America leads in its contributions. But I believe also in a president that will adhere to the rule of law. I believe a president that will listen to its CIA and FBI directors when they are telling us, we don't know from the Middle East who's coming in to cause harm to you. Then for God's sake, have common sense, as we do in our homes. Put a boat on your door. Let that boat be on our country until we can figure out who's here, who's for us, who's against us. We don't have a choice. To stay at home, that's a default. That means that you've already given up your choice. Therefore, if it doesn't work out your way, then you don't have a right to complain. We have a clear choice, and that choice has to be Donald Trump. We need America to be great again. We need our poor people in poor ghettos to know they can live again, that there are jobs again, that we can bring industry back here again. And in doing so, I believe this tide will rise for everyone then, and I believe we can have a great America again. I believe so optimistically that I'm willing to risk so much of my personal life and my livelihood to do what I'm doing because I believe we're on the cusp of one of the greatest moments in America. And if we get it wrong, we won't have a chance to right it again, probably for another 100 years. I can't afford that, and my silence can't be part of my vernacular. Therefore, I must be outspoken. I must do the things I do. And I believe, honestly, we can do it, and we will with Donald Trump.
Bishop Aubrey Shines, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.